Hey everyone, it's Denise Brown from caringourway.com, and this is Caregiver Support Live. We connect on the first Friday of every month at noon Eastern Time to tackle some caregiving challenges. My co-host is Jennifer Ritchie. Hi, Jennifer.
Hello, how are you?
Good. Always good to see you.
You
Jennifer
too.
is one of our certified caregiving consultants, educators, and facilitators, and she is a former family caregiver.
Yes.
And I'm a former family caregiver too, so I helped both parents. All right, so each time we gather, we take a look at some questions that family caregivers have either submitted to us or have submitted to an advice columnist. And I find it fascinating how many advice columnists are now tackling caregiving questions. So that's what we're going to do today. So here's our first question. Okay. My psychologically disabled adult son, who also suffers from chronic physical illnesses, will live with me for the remainder of my life as I care for him. His medications, doctor visits, and hospitalizations with multiple surgeries take up most of his monthly disability income. I was informed by my attorney to have an executor of my will selected in order to allow him to continue to get his disability pay so that his assets would not show over the required amount. Most of the people I know that could do this are my age, and the letter writer is 70, and all of us could die, leaving him in a predicament. My younger friend in her 40s is an ideal person for this, but she is hesitant to take on such a role. My understanding is that when he needs money, he would call her, he being the attorney. The attorney would call her and she would simply deposit that money from his account to his. The bills would be auto paid. Everything else is in a trust. I also was told a bank or financial planner could take this role, but would charge high fees, and my son's severe social anxiety would not allow him to communicate with someone not known to him. Do you have any suggestions for me? Okay. Jennifer, what do you think? Oh, Jennifer, you're on mute.
So sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
Um, I have lots of thoughts about this because I worked for over 20 years with people with disabilities. And the first thing I want to say to this mom is thank you for planning because I have seen so many adult children who have disabilities. Their parents are not planning for their death and will end up leaving them in a real predicament. So, first of all, I'm glad you're thinking about this. I would also love to know what state she is in because there are laws um, in certain states that address this exact issue. But I'm going to just assume I don't know that. Um, as far as, let's see, what was I going to say? I mean, there are logistical things that we could talk about here. I know there's a social anxiety issue, but there are other ways to communicate, like texting or email, that would not require a social encounter. That might be a possibility because my first thought was there are people out there that do this professionally, and that would eliminate the issue of her friend feeling like, hesitant. And I understand why there is that hesitation because this is a big job. It's a big responsibility and it's a huge, there's such a prevalence of financial and fiduciary abuse around this kind of thing, that it's a little scary to take on that role knowing that that's there. Um, so if they were to come up with a situation where it was a professional, could we do some sort of like the son texts the person saying, I need money for this, you know? Um, I'm curious too why the younger friend is hesitant. Like, is it just because it's a big responsibility? Is it because she doesn't know how to do it? Having been an executor of two estates, I'm not knowing what I was doing. I understand not wanting to do it. Um, so yeah, there's a lot of like logistical things that I think are very fixable here. And she's smart to start thinking about it now. What are your thoughts, Denise?
Yeah, I thought it was great that she was thinking about it. I thought the mom is really doing this in a very compassionate and
Yeah,
practical way. She's really thinking about what could work for her son, understanding that there's certain situations that will work for him and not work for him.
yeah.
I thought it was great that the attorney had reached out and said, we've got to start doing this. I thought that was
Mhm.
great too. And it did seem like there has to be, or there could be, a conversation with the younger friend to understand what are the concerns. And I would get that because it sounds simple when you put it on paper. You just have to transfer funds. However, what happens when decisions about healthcare have to be made? Who is going to be making those decisions? Does that default to the young friend? It's really thinking through the what ifs
Yeah.
because something's going to go wrong. And then who manages what goes wrong? Her son has complex critical care needs, and
Mhm.
that means crisis and uncertainty. And how does that get managed? I think that's part of the conversation.
I love that you brought that up too, because I also think, and this is just, I'm thinking back to my work with these folks, and there's a lot of anxiety around money, especially if it sounds like he can manage his money when he has it. But there was always a lot of anxiety around the Social Security check coming on the first, and if it was late, and panic. And so I can see, like, if he couldn't get a hold of that person right away, would he escalate, and would this become, a real problem? And so I think that could also be part of the crisis, not knowing him and not knowing what his triggers are. So, yeah, you bring up a great point.
My dad had a lot of anxiety about money,
Yeah.
and I could see how he would reach out regularly just to say, how much do I have?
Hmm.
Now, that's not to say that there couldn't be some kind of plan put in place. For instance, the young friend could email a statement
Hmm.
every Friday so the son is aware of what's available and has the information that would be helpful for him.
Hmm.
I think it also is not just looking to one person to be the team, but to think about the young friend. And actually, to be honest with you, it's not just one person, right? So what happens if the young friend wants to take a
You have a
vacation?
successor, yeah.
Yes, right. So we also have to think about who's the backup for the young friend, because
Hmm.
we can't just say, oh, it's just her and that's it. It really is a team that you're trying to build to manage this. Even if you think, okay, it's the young friend and there's a backup, you still have to train the backup and you still have to provide support for the backup. You want the backup to be able to step up if needed and feel comfortable and confident to manage the situation. It's
One of my clients, his parents were still alive. They were divorced, and um, he had a conservator, a professional conservator, and I don't know what the fees were. I don't know if it was a lot, but so there wasn't an issue of a backup, but she went to every meeting. She was like kind of like a part of the family, but she was a professional. And that was a great situation because she handled communication with us, she handled communication with, his direct staff and handled the money. And it was a great scenario for him. And that's kind of when I read this, I thought that's what I'm picturing as being a really great solution. Because it wasn't a big agency, it wasn't like a bank. It was just one person, but she had backups. So if that were available, I think that would be ideal and not too expensive, hopefully.
It's looking to see what other options are out there. I
Yeah.
think it's the conversation with the young friend. What are your concerns? How could
Mhm.
I help you with these concerns? And then it's really thinking about what's the team. And if the young friend expresses concerns and hears what the mom has to say and still says, I can't, it's important to say, got it, and move
Yes.
on. Not try to
Let her know
convince
it's okay to say
her.
no.
Right. Not try to convince her because that will only add more stress
Yeah.
and more difficulty into the situation. It also could be that the young friend really doesn't understand what's entailed, and she just needs to be part of the process for a month
Yeah.
to understand what's involved, to feel like, yeah, I can do this. No, I can't do this.
Yeah.
I also wonder if there was some way to include some kind of stipend to the young friend
Mhm.
for the work involved in doing this.
Well, I know when I was an executor, I was paid per hour, and I had to keep track of my own hours. I mean, it was kind of an honor system thing, but that was required, like by law, to pay me. So, and that was just for my mom, but my attorney had told me you keep track of your hours and pay yourself. That's where I was like, if I was an unscrupulous person, this could get really,
Yes,
like
yes.
it would be so easy to do that. And so that's my concern, with non-professionals doing it. But
About a year and a half ago, there was an article in, I can't remember if it was the Washington Post or the New York Times, and it was a fascinating article. We actually did a virtual meeting and discussion about it. It was two daughters pitted against their mother's boyfriend, who became her husband. It got to be such a terrible situation that the court appointed a conservator, someone who could manage the the body, so to speak. That's the conservator. Or is that the guardian? Anyway, it was a conservator. I always get confused about, is it body or money? Whatever she was managing, it was in the best interest of the mother, except this conservator at first was like, oh, I don't need to take any money, and then started taking a lot of money
oh,
and billing the estate for things like she would bring a birthday cake to the mom who resided in a nursing home, and she billed for that.
oh gosh.
Yeah, yeah. So you're right. It's
Yeah.
it's yeah.
It's
There's not a lot of checks and balances in place.
yeah.
This reminds me that our family emergency planning tool is so helpful, even for situations like this.
Yeah.
We do a free family emergency planning session on the fourth Friday of every month at noon Eastern time. So you're all welcome to join us. It's free. And we talk about things like this because it's hard to know what to do. And especially in a situation where you're looking to create a plan that lives with the caree who has survived you. So you're trying to plan for caregiving to last beyond you. And that can feel hard because you're really looking at planning for something you'll not be able to necessarily control, which is why it requires such significant thought and deliberation and intention for it. Okay, so I think what we came up with as the answer is to do a little bit more. I think we often come up with the answer is do a little bit more. Meet
Yeah.
with the young friend, think through what are the other options, connect again with the attorney, perhaps have the young friend shadow for a month to understand what's involved. Think about who's the backup for the young friend if she says yes, and then work it and see what works. That would be the other thing. If, for instance, the shadowing does calm the young friend's concerns and she says, yeah, I want to do this, then she should start doing it.
Mhm.
It's not helpful to start doing it after the mom's death.
Yeah,
It's
that's a
most important.
great point.
Yeah, it's most important to start doing it. You have to start doing it because then you'll get an idea of what's working and what needs tweaking.
Mhm.
Okay, let's go to our second question. This is kind of a long one. So I want everybody to sit back and relax. And I'm going to try to maybe edit this a little bit as I go through it. It's just that there's a lot of really good detail. And again, this was something that was posted online, and the letter writer had asked for suggestions. So this is the letter read by me as if I am the letter writer. And here it goes. So I have two siblings who are 35 and 38, and I'm 28. Our mother had a stroke back in 2019, and our father passed away in early 2021. I've been taking care of my mom since. I dropped out of graduate program to take care of her. Since January, things with our mom became more stressful, increased memory issues, lack of sleep, and I was generally burnt out. During this time, my siblings did not offer any assistance. They have families and lives. It fell on me because at the time I was staying with our parents in their apartment in New York, since I was going to New York, excuse me. Each year I would fly or drive to Virginia so our mom could see my siblings and her grandkids. I found a place for our mom back in February, and I informed my siblings. They had no objection at the time. Now that major holidays are coming around, they've been asking me if I'm going to bring mom. I told them no, I was not, but if they wanted to take her, they were 100% free to take her. I told her she's not in a prison, and I did put them on the list for approved people to take her out. They told me they could not do that. It was far too complicated. I told them that's unfortunate, but I'm going on vacation, so I would not be available. Now, all of a sudden, I have everyone and their mother reaching out to me, telling me how selfish and heartless I am being toward our mother. Okay. They got to see the pleasant side of our mom, and if she had an outburst, I was the one that had to deal with it. My brother said I should have asked for help. He claimed he figured I had it all handled and Dot did not need help. I told him I should not have had to ask for help when I was 23, when mom had her stroke, and 25 when dad passed. My brother knew I was stressed and was handling everything. I told him he did not even to offer to help set up the arrangements for our dad's funeral. Neither did our sister. My brother said he cannot read minds. I should have asked. So in that moment, I said fine and asked him, can you come pick up mom so she could go over for Thanksgiving? I will cover the travel fare. He came up with excuses like it was short notice. I said, fine, what about Christmas? And again, he came up with an excuse. After that, I told him, this is why I did not ask, because you will always come up with an excuse to get out of it. I told him, this is how you two have always been. Okay, so he's wondering, if he's in the wrong.
Okay.
And I think we could both adamantly say, no,
No.
no, absolutely not. And those who are joining us live, you're welcome to share your insights in the chat room too. We'd love to hear from you. Yeah, no, I would say, okay, Jennifer, you go first. Go ahead.
Um, no, and in fact, I commend him for at 28 or actually 23 when it started, stepping up and taking care of his mom. And this might sound sexist, but as a man, you don't see that very often either, you know? It's usually the daughter. And so, even more so, I thought, um, wow, that's amazing that he did that, dropping out of school and everything to do it. Very selfless, I see. Um, Now, his siblings are allowed to not ask for help or not offer help. They're allowed to just be kind of, absent because they're human. He's also allowed to not ask for help. But when he finally did, they, oh, no, no, there's excuses. So he's absolutely not in the wrong. And I was glad to see that he found a place for mom where she's safe and he can actually have a life. Um, yeah, so lots of emotional thoughts about these siblings too that I will keep to myself.
Oh, no, we could say it. To me, that is a whole lot of projection from the
Yeah,
brother onto the primary family caregiver.
yeah.
That brother is feeling a whole lot of guilt.
Yes, yes.
And I would imagine he is feeling guilty that he can't do what his younger brother by 15 years, or
Yeah.
actually, it's probably not 15, but 10 years, by 10 years, figured out what to do, and he can't figure it out. That's all about the brother. It has
Yeah.
nothing to do with our letter writer. Our letter writer managed that situation so well.
Mhm.
And when he knew he was burnt out, he did something about it. He took
Yes.
care of it. He's taking care of his mom while having jerks as siblings. Jerks feels like a soft word for them, to be
That
honest
was the
with
word
you.
I was going to use too.
I think we could think of other words, but we'll just say jerks. Oh,
Mhm.
yeah. Oh my gosh. And then for people to call up that primary family caregiver and say anything other than thank you, how can we help and support you, is absolutely infuriating. Infuriating.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I,
And,
I
and there was a piece of this letter that you edited out that, talked about how he was the one that stepped up to take care of her after the stroke. And there were sleepless nights and outbursts and like very dramatic situations, and he handled everything.
he handled everything. And
Yeah,
I think it's so frustrating. I actually do say it's okay that people can't read our mind. It's okay that people aren't us. It's
yeah,
okay that people aren't empathetic. They can't understand how to meet others' needs without a step-by-step instruction guide. I get that. And it's also horrifying to let a younger sibling at 23 years of age manage all of this.
mhm,
That they all said, it's okay for you to drop out of graduate school. It's okay for you to manage this. It's okay for you to manage our dad's funeral.
yeah,
That is that makes me want to cry. It is horrible to put together the funeral arrangements. I can't imagine at 25 years old understanding how to do that. I don't understand that. That is horrifying. Yeah, one of our live listeners is sharing in the chat room that she feels validated. I care for her. She cares for her mom full time and family is not supportive. We try to be as empathetic and kind to people who can't, but you know what? At some point, you're just like, oh, you're jerks. You're jerks that you can't get this, that you can't figure this out, that you can't get it together.
And there is sort of like a until you're doing it, you don't realize how hard it is. But how can you think that this is easy? I mean, if you can't even be put out enough to go visit and have to have your mother delivered to you every year, and yet you're thinking, oh, they'll ask for help. Like, oh, yeah.
And what was interesting is the brother, the jerky brother, all he wants is the primary family caregiver to still take care of him, the jerk.
Hmm.
The jerk, I apologize.
I love it.
I can't even call him brother number two. The jerk feels guilty that he's not going to see his mom for the holidays. And it was easy to see his mom for the holidays when his younger brother took care of it all. And so now he's like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. I'm not going to see my mom for the holidays, but huh, this is going to take some work for me. And that's not good for me. So I'm going to put this horrible guilt trip on my younger sibling that he needs to disrupt everything to make life easier for me. So I am not bothered.
Yeah. Yes. So, letter writer, we salute you.
Yes, letter writer didn't do anything wrong. We hope you have a fabulous vacation. We hope you have a fabulous life. Okay, so Crystal is writing in the chat room and she wonders if perhaps there is some family system dynamics at play, some unresolved stuff that keeps people stuck in the ways that they have behaved throughout. There's no evolution. The older siblings never evolved into being able to support. They stayed stuck in, I can't do it. I can't do it. I think that's a really interesting point, Crystal. So you're actually making us feel like, okay, we should be a little
Maybe
passionate.
they're not jerks.
Yeah, I just can't get past that though. Okay, so there could be, and you know what? It could be unresolved dynamics with parents. And I get that. I get that. It's just that to have really no contact with their mother until it's the holidays, and then to expect that primary family caregiver again to take care of everything, to make life easier for them.
Yeah. And
Yeah, we thank you, Crystal. So she's also Crystal's also clarifying. She doesn't mean to minimize our strong emotions. Yes, right. We get that. Yeah, we appreciate that. We do try to be as kind and compassionate as we can around other siblings and other family members.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and like I said at the beginning, people are allowed to be jerks. Like they just are. It's okay. But it doesn't mean it's okay. We're all human. We all have our thing. But this is just a bit egregious.
It's that's such a good point. They can be jerks and it doesn't have to impact us.
Yeah.
We don't have to respond to their jerky behavior by
Boundaries
coming.
that this guy has set are beautiful. Like you're welcome to go get her. You're welcome to go see her. I'm out. If she's
Yes.
safe, she's okay.
Yes.
I mean, I thought
Yeah.
that was just so unusual too. Like as caregivers, we're just so in it and like not wanting anyone else to take over and so much of that and he is setting beautiful boundaries there.
And I think it also just really showed who the jerk brother is when the family caregiver said, I will do as much as I can to make this as easy as possible for you. And the jerk brother still said no.
Mhm.
There
Yeah.
is discomfort in providing care for someone. I get that. I get that. You also have to own that. So, for instance, the jerk brother is saying to his younger brother, I can't read your mind. And yet he's expecting the younger brother to read his mind.
Mhm.
It's total projection.
Well, and no one's saying that he has to go and take mom out where he's caring. They could go to the facility and have a meal with her there. They could,
Yes,
I mean,
yeah.
it's not. They don't have
Yeah.
to do anything above
Yes.
and beyond.
And so Krista was also sharing that it seems like the youngest is acting more like the older sibling, and the older ones are the younger ones. Yes. Yeah. 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 I think the letter writer really just wanted to know that he was okay and
Mhm.
setting the boundaries and making the choices that he had, and absolutely okay. Just want to ask one other question. What do you think is right for the relationship between the primary family caregiver and his older siblings to be like in the future?
Mm. You mean like how
Yeah,
should it play out in an ideal
yeah,
situation kind of thing?
yeah, yeah. How does he keep the relationship with them?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, and it also depends on, I mean, I assume he wants to keep the relationship, this, it doesn't sound like they're at the point where they're like cutting each other off. Um, I think he continues with the boundaries, it's their responsibility to come and see mom if they want to come and see mom, unless he's doing it because he wants to and
Right,
takes care.
exactly. Yes, exactly.
I
Yes.
think he just maintains what he's already done. And maybe they have more of, maybe they have a planned once every 3 months, they all come together as a family and talk about mom's care. You know, again, this is something that like a CCC could help with. We all come together and just have a check-in. How's mom doing? How are you doing? How is everyone? Do you need help? We can't provide it, but we will help you find it, you know, something. I mean, just to check in uh, and maintaining those boundaries. That would be my
Yeah,
suggestion.
yeah. I think this really speaks to the complication of a caregiving situation. It's why we have family systems and relationships as part of the 17 caregiving systems.
Mhm.
And it's why it can be so exhausting
Yeah.
because you run into conversations that you think, wait a minute, what are you saying to me? And then you're not even sure. And then what do? You reach out for support and you're trying to find the right support around it. It's exhausting. It's exhausting. I just want to mention something too. So I have an older sister. Maybe this is why it gets me so riled up. I have an older sister who's a nightmare, and she's been a nightmare for a long time. And I would tell a colleague about what she was like. And recently, my colleague said to me, I always thought you were exaggerating about your sister. I just never thought, that doesn't sound right. Just doesn't sound like that's true. That she said. Then I spent a Thanksgiving with another family member who kind of sounds like your sister. And then I got it. Just
Um,
like you were talking about earlier, unless you're in the caregiving situation, you can't necessarily get it. And I think
mm,
unless you have difficult sibling relationships, it's hard to understand what that's like.
yeah.
Because we're not exaggerating. We're not painting them in a particularly horrible color. It's who they are. It's who they are.
Yeah. That's a great point.
Okay, we did it. We finished up. Thanks to those who have joined us live. Thanks for adding your insights in the chat room. That's always so helpful for us.
Yeah. We love having you here.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And we do meet on the first Friday of every month at noon Eastern time. We tackle a couple questions. You are welcome to submit a question for us to tackle. You can send us an email to questions@caringourway.com. And you can join our community, caringourway.com, for support and comfort that's just for you. Okay, thanks everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.